Hello, fourth grade, and welcome to Unit 5, Week 5 of Language Arts. We're going to start with our vocabulary words. The first word is the word permanent. Permanent means something that is always there, something that is lasting. So if you've ever, for example, gotten permanent marker on your clothes, you know you can't get that stuff out because it sticks, it stays, and it's lasting. Next, we have the word uncover. To uncover something is to make that thing known. So that thing is no longer hidden or it's no longer a secret. When you uncover it, now it's known. Next, we have the word tremendous. Tremendous means huge or a very big size or a very big amount. So you can say, the tremendous walls are 33 feet high and 12 feet thick. Next, we have the word evidence. So evidence is proof of something. So if you find evidence of something, you're finding proof of that thing. So we know that scientists have found evidence of dinosaurs walking the earth before because they've uncovered dinosaur bones. Next, we have the word document. To document something means to support it or to prove with facts. So when you document something, you're basically supporting it and you're writing that information down, right? So the city's museum document its history. Next, we have the word era. An era is a time period that's it's specific because of a certain event that happened during that time period or specific ideas that people had or important people that were present in that time period. So an era is basically a period of time that is marked by something specific or unique to that specific time period. So our example here says they're studying history and how people lived a long time ago. And our last word is the word expedition. An expedition is a journey that people make to research or to explore. So you're not making a journey, you're not traveling to go on vacation. You're traveling because you're trying to find something, you're searching for something, you're studying something. Now our spelling words for this week are going to focus on words that have a consonant plus LE ending syllable. So we've seen words like this before. Our words this week are pebble, humble, double, gamble, trouble, uncle, needle, fiddle, cuddle, cradle, jungle, single, marble, ramble, hackle, ankle, freckle, buckle, hustle, tangle, barber, anchor, cheddar, staple, and stifle. So consonant plus LE means you have a consonant letter and then the LE letters at the end, and those make up your final syllable. So you can see it in all of these, or in almost all of these words, except for the review words, of course. So these ones that I'm highlighting, you can see that it's a consonant plus LE that you see in multiple words as you go down, and they all end with that ol sound at the end of them. Now for our language arts and grammar notes this week, we've got a lot of things to cover. Some of them are review. Some of them have a lot of information that I put in there that you don't necessarily need all of it to complete your work, but it's information that is good to know and to understand. So there's lots of examples, so it'll look like there's a lot here. Most of it is review with just some new things. Now we're going to talk about suffixes first. Now we know suffixes come from the word affix, and that means to stick or to attach to something. And the job of a suffix is to modify the meaning of the word that you stuck it onto. So the suffixes we're going to talk about today are the suffixes meant, able, and ible. So meant means the state or the action or the result of something. So the establishment is the state of something being established or something being made. So the establishment of the art club means we established or we made an art club. Enjoyment is the state of enjoying something or the result of enjoying something. Achievement is the result of achieving something or the state of achieving something, and so on. Now, able and ible both have the same meaning. They both mean to be capable of doing something or something that can be or you're able to do something. Now they have the same meaning, but they have different rules. So able, A-B-L-E, is what you add on to the end of a standalone word. So a base word. That means that word by itself, before you add the A-B-L-E, is already a whole word. So we have preventable. The word prevent is a whole word by itself. Adaptable, the word adapt, is a whole word by itself. Same for predictable and acceptable. Now, the suffix ible, I-B-L-E, is not added onto a base word. It's added onto a root word that cannot stand alone. That means if you take off the I-B-L-E, what you have left is not a whole word. If you take off A-B-L-E, you're still left with a whole word. So something that is edible can be eaten, but ed by itself is not a word. Convincible, convince, C-O-N-V-I-N-C by itself, again, is not a word. It's supposed to have a silent E at the end. Divisible, divis, is not a word. Horrible, permissible. So you see the pattern. So A-B-L-E, you tag it onto the end of a whole word. I-B-L-E, you tag it on to the end of a root word that can't be a word by itself. Now we've been talking about comparative and superlative. Now remember, comparative is when we're comparing two things. Superlative, think super is the best of everything or the worst of everything. So when we describe something, we can say something is good. If we're talking about two things, we can say one is better than the other. If we're talking about three or more, we can say this is the best of them all. Now we talked about more and most already. So I'm not going to go over this too quickly, but it is here in your notes, so you can go back and review it. So for good, better, and best, we talked about good when we're describing one noun. So this apple tastes good. You can use better when you're comparing two nouns. I think green apples taste better than red apples. So I'm comparing green apples to red apples. Or I can say she is the best storyteller in the class, where I'm saying she is better than everybody there, right? So she is the best. We're comparing her to three or more people. Now we do the same thing with the word bad, worse, and worst. Bad is when you're talking about one thing. The weather outside is bad for a picnic. Worse is when we're comparing two things. My headache today is worse than it was yesterday. Or worst when we're comparing three or more things. And I can say the worst weather we had all week was last Saturday when it rained all day. So I'm comparing the weather on Saturday compared to the entire week's weather. So your basic describing word, the comparative form, the superlative form. Now we also did some work with combining sentences. You're not going to see a lot of this in your grammar packet for this week, but you are going to see some of it. Now, I'm giving you guys a good amount of information and several examples for each one of the different ways that you can combine sentences. Do not worry if you don't have them all memorized. That's okay. This is just an overview to help you find ways, new and creative ways, to put sentences together so that your reading and your writing becomes more interesting. So we can combine sentences lots of ways. First, coordinating conjunctions by using the fanboys. So I want to go to the park, but I don't want to go to the store. And our fanboys are for, and, nor, but, or, so, and yet, or yet and so. Those are right here. I gave you an example sentence. So we've already talked about this. I'm not going to spend much time on it. Appositives and appositive phrases. Now, this is also something we've talked about a couple times in the past. Appositives or appositive phrases, they rename the noun and they describe it. And they usually come, they describe the noun that came right before it. So you'll have your noun first, then you'll have your appositive phrase that renames it or gives you extra information about it, and then you have the rest of your sentence. And the way that you know it's an appositive is it's extra information. So what does that mean? That means if I take that appositive or that appositive phrase out of the sentence, my sentence still makes sense. It's still a complete sentence. So the example sentence I used before, I'm going to use it again just to refresh your memory. we were combining the two sentences. Hermione Granger is accomplished at spells. She is a witch at Hogwarts School. I can put those together by saying Hermione Granger, a witch at Hogwarts School. So that phrase, a witch at Hogwarts School, tells me more about Hermione Granger. So Hermione Granger, comma, a witch at Hogwarts School, comma, is accomplished at spells. So the core of my sentence is that Hermione Granger is accomplished at spells. But by adding that extra appositive phrase, I get bonus information about her, right? It tells me more. So it renames her. It doesn't just tell me her name, it also tells me that she's a witch at Hogwarts School. Now, adverbs are words that tell us more about the verb, and they almost always answer the question how, when, where, how often, and in what way. So most adverbs will end in ly. So the way that you're doing something, slowly, loudly, carefully, quickly, quietly. These are adverbs. Next, we have adjectives. So before I go on to adjectives, for adverbs, so I can say, they read the book, they read very quickly. I can put that together to say, they read their book quickly. So I'm taking those two sentences over here. Here's my sentence. They read their books, they were quick. I can change that to say, they read their book quickly, or books quickly. So you're taking two simple sentences that are kind of boring by themselves. You put them together, you make them a little more interesting, a little bit easier to read. Now for adjectives, when we're combining adjectives, or we're combining sentences with adjectives, I can take two simple sentences again. My coat is very warm, it is red. So the adjectives here are warm and red. I can put those together into one sentence. I can say my red coat is very warm. And we have correlative conjunctions. So correlative conjunctions are word pairs that are used together. So if, then, either, or, things like that. And I do have a whole list of examples for you about correlative conjunctions if you scroll all the way down to here. So here's a whole bunch of correlative conjunctions in this nice teal and blue diagram. So they're word pairs that we use to put sentences together. If we go to the zoo, then we can see the pandas. Now, the next bit about participles and participial phrases is a little bit more involved. You don't need to know these in depth too much now, but you are going to be learning them anyway. So it's good to get familiar with them now so that it's easy for you later when you have to focus on them a little bit more in depth. So participles and participial phrases are verbs or verb phrases that are used as adjectives to describe the noun in the sentence. What does that mean? The participles usually end in ing for present tense and ed or en for past tense. So if my verb is to rise, I could say the rising sun. So how is this a participle? Rising is actually a verb, right? It's a thing that happens, it's a thing that's done. But I'm using that verb to describe the sun. So the rising sun. So this verb is now also used as an adjective. That's what makes it a participle. Or if I say in past tense, I can say the risen sun. So the sun that already rose. If my verb is boil, so I can say the boiling water. Boiling is a verb, right? It's a thing that happens. It's the thing that's done. But when I say the boiling water, since it's sitting right before that noun, it's describing that noun and it's functioning or it's working as an adjective. It's what kind of water is it? It's boiling water. What kind of sun is it? It's the rising sun. Or past tense, the boiled water. So I'm taking these words that are usually verbs, but when I stick them right before a noun, now they become an adjective also. They're describing the noun. They're telling how the noun or what the noun is doing. So if we have the verb to break, I can say the breaking news or the broken news. Or I can say the breaking glass and the broken glass. That's easier for you guys to understand. I have the word to cook. Cook is a verb, right? It's a thing that you do. I can say the cooking chicken smells delicious, right? Cooking is now describing the chicken. It's telling us what the chicken is doing, or the cooked chicken. So I gave you guys a few example sentences for present and past tense participles and participial phrases we're going to get to in a little bit. So I watched the boiling water in the pot. So boiling, since it's coming before the noun water, is now a participle. Her caring nature made her one of the nicest people I know. Her nature, which is basically her personality and the way that she is now being described by the word caring. So caring isn't just a verb, now it's an adjective too. The boy studied for the spelling bee for weeks, making him a deserving recipient of the prize. So the recipient, the person who receives the prize, right, is deserving. So this deserving is now an adjective. A laughing man is stronger than a suffering man. So laughing, even though it's a verb, it's a thing that you do. I'm using it to describe the man. He is, what kind of man is he? He's a laughing man. This one, what kind of man is he? He is a suffering man. Next, I have the example, the animal shelter had saved a starving dog from an abandoned building. So starving, even though it's a verb, it's something that happens when you don't eat, right? Starving is now being used to describe the dog in the sentence, so that makes it a participle. Next sentence, the sleeping man was comfortable and warm under his blankets. Sleeping, even though it's a verb, in this sentence it's used as an adjective because it's coming before a noun that it's describing. So participles, past tense. So these were all present tense. You saw that they had an ing at the end of them. Past tense, the broken window. Broken is a verb when something gets broken, but it's being used as an adjective to describe the window. So the old house had a broken window. The girl added flowers to the painted frame. We passed the model of the destroyed bridge from the movie. After walking into a tree, he had a swollen eye for 2 days. She tried to open the locked door. So anytime you're seeing a noun after it, it's a participle. If there's no noun after it, then it's not a participle. So you can change the order around a little bit, but if you don't see that it's referring to a noun, then it's not participle. Now, participle phrases are basically the participle word plus the other words that come after it. So again, these are things that you can take out of the sentence, just like the appositive phrases, and you still have a whole sentence. So it's really common to see participles in participial phrases. A participial phrase also acts like an adjective, but it's a group of words, not just a single word. So the man carrying the bricks is my father. So carrying the bricks is describing my father. I can take that out of the sentence if I want to and say the man is my father. That's still a whole sentence. For the next one, she showed us a plate of scones crammed with cream. So she showed us a plate of scones is perfectly fine as a sentence by itself, but crammed with cream is describing the scones. That means they were full of cream. Whistling the same tune as always, Ted touched the front of his cap with his forefinger as she dismounted. So remember, our participles usually end with an ing if they're present tense or ed if they're past tense. So whistling the same tune always. This, my participial phrase here is at the beginning of my sentence. It's followed by a comma. So when it starts a sentence, you have a comma after it. When it's later on in the sentence, there's no comma. So I can take that part out and say, Ted touched the front of his cap, so on, and that's still a whole sentence. So whistling the same tune is describing Ted, right? That phrase is being used as an adjective. The last one we have here says, stunned by the blow, Mike quickly gathered his senses and searched frantically for the pepper spray. So stunned by the blow, that's describing Mike. So he is stunned, he is shocked. He got hit over the head. All of these things are describing how Mike is or how Mike is feeling right now. Now, the last thing we're going to talk about are prepositions. Now, a preposition shows a relationship between a word in the sentence and the object of the preposition. So what does that mean? The object of a preposition is the noun that comes after the preposition. So look at the word itself. It is prepositioned, right? Pre means before. So it is positioned before the noun that it's talking about. The preposition is relating the object to something in the sentence. So prepositions can never be alone. They're usually in a phrase. If it's alone, it will function actually kind of like an adverb, but without the object. So remember, an adverb describes how, when, where, how often, and in what way. We talked about that right over here. So number 3, we talked about adverbs. Now you see over here, my example sentence for adverbs, it says they read their book quickly. So this doesn't have anything after it. So you see the adverb and there's no object. So we know that it's just an adverb. If it has an object after it, a noun after it, then we know it's a prepositional phrase. So the flower in the vase is a peony. In is my preposition, and it's relating the flower to the vase. It's telling me where that thing is. So remember, our prepositions ask how, when, where, how often, and in what way. So the word in is my preposition. It's relating the flower to the vase. The umbrella with the polka dots is Marianne's. So with is my preposition here. It's relating the umbrella to the polka dots. We will be going to the movies. So to is my preposition here. It's showing the relationship between where we are going and the movies. My lunch period is after science. So again, this tells me when. After is my preposition. It relates my lunch period to science class. You are walking on your tiptoes. On is my preposition here. It's relating the way I'm walking to my tiptoes. So it's a way to make your sentence whole and to make your sentence make sense. So the prepositional phrases are going to be the phrases that I highlighted over, or sorry, I bolded in the sentence. So that preposition, the word itself is in, with, to, after, on. There are lots of prepositions, not just these, but this is just to get you familiar with what they are and what kinds of words they are. So in the vase is a prepositional phrase. So in is my preposition. The vase is the object of my preposition, right? Because remember, we said the object comes right after the preposition. The preposition is prepositioned. That means it's put right before the object that it's describing. With the polka dots, so with is the preposition. The polka dots is the object. To the movies, to is my preposition. The movies is the object. After science class, so after was my preposition. Science class was the object. On your tiptoes, so on was the preposition and tiptoes was the object. I know there's a lot of information to take in all at once. I did give you guys some visuals that you can look at. These are some of our most commonly used prepositions. There are several more, so in, at, for, by, on, from, anything related to those kinds of words, anything that answers your questions about how, when, where, how often, and in what way are prepositions. Our coordinating conjunctions, in case you forgot, there's another visual for that. And like I told you earlier, our visual for correlative conjunctions. I did put in some additional videos in Google Classroom for you guys to review to help you get a better handle on some of these concepts. Now we're going to jump into our literature anthology book first, and we're going to be reading an informational article, which means it's an expository text, called Rediscovering Our Spanish Beginnings. And this is an article out of Time Magazine for Kids. All right, that takes us to the end of our stories in our literature anthology. Let's take a look at our reading and writing workshop, where we're going to be reading another article from Time for Kids titled Where It All Began. Okay, next we're going to talk about our comprehension strategy and skill. Again, we're going to review summarizing, which basically means to take the most important parts of the passage that you were reading, and then sequence, which means to put things in order. And this is how you'll see a lot of historical pieces written where they're telling you about events that happen in history. They'll put them in sequential or sequence order to show you what happened first, next, and so on. All right, the last thing we're going to go over are part of your vocabulary strategy. Now, this wasn't in the written notes, but there are videos attached that will tell you more about these. Proverbs and adages are basically sayings that have been around for a long time in a particular culture. And if you look at any culture, they all have these little sayings that people say. They usually have a meaning behind them. Use the context clues when you're looking at them to figure out what they're talking about. All right, that takes us to the end of our notes for today. If you guys have any questions, definitely let me know. Otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye-bye.